Hello, everyone. Again, today we have with us, one of our really efficient optimal EFT practitioners. She's also the director of the Gary Craig Official EFT Training Center in the Dutch language. And she's an MD. It's Dr. Gabrielle Rutten. I'm going to say hello, Gabrielle. Are you there? There you are.
Hi.
Okay, our topic today is one of the more sophisticated topics having to do with our advanced course, the Optimal EFT course for our members and so on. It has to do with the term association versus dissociation. Now, some people are familiar with what those two terms are, but not everybody is. So could you describe the difference between what's known as dissociation and association?
Yes. It's got to do with how your memory works and how you relive things. So association means that you relive a past memory as if it's happening right now, which means you step into the moment, you look through your own eyes, and whatever happens, happens there. The reason you need to do that is that only in this way do you activate the whole stress reaction that caused you to have negative emotions in a certain situation.
Sure, and if we're going to be complete and really do our job thoroughly and well with a given specific event, a given traumatic memory, for example, we're going to need to really step into it. However, and I'll just use the example of some of our war veterans, to start right off the bat and just dig right in there and get all associated with all that happens, whoa, you can get some really big time reactions. So we don't necessarily want to do association to begin with. Would I be correct?
You are correct insofar we're talking about traumatic events. You will be dissociated on traumatic events. This is how you get through them. It's normal to dissociate. And so which means that when you think back, you'll be thinking back, past tense, so you're looking at it, or you're sort of not even, looking at it, just keep it vague and stuff like that. So this natural reaction you need to honor. And so if you're dissociated on a memory, war veteran or otherwise, you start dissociated.
Yeah. Well,
but the power of EFT is that if you start dissociated, you will get, all this charge will become less and less and less.
Yeah, and then you can get into the associated state and really get the job done, because to take our war veteran, for example, I know from great experience, if I just started right in, let's get into all of this. We want to start off dissociated. It's more like sitting in the movie theater, in a seat in the movie theater, watching the movie out there. It's more comfortable to do. And so we can aim at parts of it and specific pieces of it and one thing and another, and start to make it more comfortable. Take the edge off. But eventually, if we're going to do the job well, they've got to get right back in that movie right at that moment. They've got to hear those screams. They've got to smell those smells. They've got to associate, feel those feelings, and then we can collapse. It's really easy to just kind of stay on the sidelines somehow. But you're talking about that's associate.
Yes. And so if you want to work on, obviously, if there's like big childhood trauma, you start dissociatedly, in a dissociative way, or whatever the expression is. However, you need to keep working on that event until you are able to go through it in an associated way, so that you can test whether there's still aspects there or whatever else, because the complete reaction needs to be zero, peaceful.
Yeah, the way I tend to say it is, even the most traumatic of events, if we've done this job well and done it thoroughly, it will be something like when you were 5 years old, you fell off your bicycle, you skinned your knee. It hurt at the time, but now you look back at it and go, oh, okay. It's just one more event that happened in your world. Okay.
But what I
My-
would like to point out is that you don't look back at it and remember that, you were 5 and stuff, but you have to become 5, be on this bike, and really fall down. So you need to relive the moment. That's association.
Okay, but yes. What I'm saying with that example, though, is a little different than that. It's once you have done a truly traumatic event, not falling off your bicycle at age 5, but a truly traumatic event, and you've done it well and thoroughly with association and all of that, your response to it would be similar to I fell off my bike when I was age 5, and
Exactly.
okay, and so on. I know sometimes. Comment on this if you would, Gabrielle. Sometimes I'm dealing with a client and we're working on specific events and we're getting better and better and better at the specific events. And the client will say to me words like, I feel it's more distant now. Okay. Well, I hear one of two things, and I often will ask the client about this. I'll say, distant. Okay. Like you're in the movie theater watching on a movie now, or it's just all blurry or doesn't matter much. And yeah. And I said, well, that's one of two things. Either we really have done something worthwhile collapsing this issue, and yes, it just doesn't seem like much anymore, or you swept it under the rug. You are still repressing it. You're not associated well enough with it to really get it done. And what I find, I don't know if you do this or not, but when I ask them, I'll say, do you think you've really collapsed it or you're dissociating? And they tend to know. They'll tell me, okay? They'll say something. They'll say, no, I think I'm dissociating. Big clue, big clue, big clue.
Yes.
Comment on that, would you?
Yeah. So it's my experience that, the small stuff, the daily stuff, that might sort of dissolve. You might not even be able to recall again what the situation was, or what the quarrel was about, or whatever else. So those, very unimportant little memories, they just dissolve, and there's distance and whatever else. However, if it's a traumatic or an important past specific event, the details will not disappear. So I would always instruct them to close their eyes, take a moment to realize, and I start asking them questions. Where are you now? Because we'll be talking present tense, because now they need to be in the moment. I'm walking on the street, and what happens next? I see this a man coming towards me, and they have to tell in present tense and go through the whole scene again, just to check whether they are, if they are associated in the event. Nothing happens anymore, and only then can you say, it's all tested and it's done. The reason being is because you want the link between the trigger and the stress response needs to be severed. The link should not work anymore.
Yeah. And
in this past event.
In one sense, doing association really thoroughly could involve all the senses. I'm thinking of something like, well, it could be a war trauma or a sexual trauma. The smells, the tastes, the sounds, the grunts, the screams, all of that.
Absolutely.
Are trigger points.
Yes, absolutely.
And you get to those when you're associated. People don't want to associate typically.
No. And so you need to work dissociatedly if need be, until it's doable, because and you need reframes for this, because whatever happened, it's in the past, it's done, it will never happen again. You somehow got through it. And so however awful the past event is, you're here now looking back at it. That's healthy dissociation. However, to really resolve the thing, you need to work on it in an associative way. And I'd like to point out that even the most horrific stuff you can resolve because it's in the past. People sometimes make the mistake that they say, well, this was so awful, next time it happens, I'll be upset again. Of course, because next time is not a test for something that, is behind you. So you can always let the past go. You can always resolve past experiences, and that's why you need to test them and test them in an associative way.
Yeah.
We're never saying that, awful stuff, that you're immune or not sensitive to awful stuff. If something awful happens, you'll have an emotional reaction in the now. But what we're doing is we make sure that whatever happened in your past isn't contributing to it, you're not carrying it around with you. So this is why this distinction between dissociation and association is very important.
Sure. Got it. Point really well made. Anything else you want to say on that, Gabrielle, before we close up?
No, I think this is
All right.
it.
All right. Well, with a great big hug to you from California to Holland.
Yes, big hug back.
All right. All right. Next time.